Back in we dive, and this is the day of the week and the time of the day of the week, which we talk with Wyoming Liberty Group about various issues happening around the state of Wyoming, which, by the way, I always make sure everybody knows has regional implications, sometimes even national implications, because the topics that they cover. If you haven't been to the website, just go to the Wyoming Liberty Group website. Just Google it, Wyoming Liberty Group, and you'll find all of these topics and a whole lot more. And I also put the same topics on my regional page. Amy, good to see you again.
Good to see you, Glenn.
What you got for us this week?
Well, I thought I'd start out by talking about recently up in Lander, the State Board of Education, I think, made a very wise decision in delaying sort of the next round of standards adoptions, and this is in the area of science standards, science and social studies standards. Really, science probably the most controversial. They're taking a look at the only standards that they are looking at to replace Wyoming's current science standards are what are called the next generation science standards. And while these are not
Common Core issue?
Yeah, they're not specifically part of the Common Core initiative. They're clearly aligned with the Common Core, and these standards were written by sort of an elite group of scientists. They were written by the National Research Council, the National Science Teachers Association, and the American Association for the Advancement of the Sciences. And all these guys pretty much have extensive curriculums on global warming. And I think probably one of the most highly controversial issues within the standards is starting at the grade kindergarten, and I have the standards right here. Starting at the grade of kindergarten, we're going to be teaching about man's impact on the environment.
Okay, and do they, and I think I already know the answer to this, but I'll go ahead and ask you anyway. So have you seen any of this? Do they, when they talk about man's impact on the environment, offer up any other point of view or just one point of view?
Just one point of view. So as a matter of fact, these standards are actually in litigation in the state of Kansas for that very reason. A group called COPE, Citizens for Objective Public Education, has filed suit in Kansas against these science standards. And essentially what they're saying is that these standards are teaching one worldview and one view particularly on global warming and population control issues and that sort of thing, and nothing else. And these standards, very similar to the Common Core, have a very fundamentally different view of how to teach this discipline, and the way they really teach it is through sort of problem advocacy. Let's have the students look at a problem, then learn the science to solve the problem.
Okay, now you said that they rejected this in Lander?
They have delayed it.
They
have not rejected it. It is still on the table. It is still the only set of science standards they are looking at. It is the only set of science standards that the Wyoming Department of Education has presented to the State Board of Education. So we obviously need to be talking to the governor and talking to legislators in the state board, but one has to wonder why this is the only thing coming out of the Wyoming Department of Education.
Well, that was my next question here, because, okay, this is the only, are they not looking at anything else? Are they not interested in, I mean, you would think that they would have laid out several possible proposals, and when searching for the best one, instead of just laying out one point of view, in Wyoming of all places, I mean, come on.
That's not how we have seen the standards review process going down over the last several years in Wyoming. I mean, that's one of the reasons we got the Common Core, is that the department itself has its own internal process, because the legislature gave the Department of Education really broad authority to set the standards through the State Board of Education. So the State Board through the Department of Education, because remember, our State Board of Education doesn't have a support staff. They rely almost solely on the Department of Education to do all of its statutory functions. So it looks to the Department of Education. So the Department of Education has a whole standards review team that goes over these standards. And they've set their own sort of rules. They often don't keep those rules. For instance, they say that they're going to put parents on these review committees, and then that doesn't happen. But in this instance, and in the instance of the Common Core English Language Arts and Math standards, we didn't see any other standards being brought forward to the State Board of Education.
Okay, so if no other standards are brought forward and this has been delayed, is there any repercussions for delaying or rejecting something that has been brought forward? I mean, is there any payback that you can see? Because you know how these people operate. You don't take what they suggest to you. Oftentimes, they try to punish you into taking their curriculum.
Well, I mean, the Department of Education is doing a very hard sell. At the committee meeting in Lander, they spent 2 hours praising these standards and talking about how good they are, very similar to what they say about the Common Core standards. And also, obviously, they use financial incentive ideas. We've seen that with the whole assessment piece of this, saying how much cheaper the Smarter Balance test will be. Will there be payback? Well, I mean, or any kind of blow from the department? I don't think the department would be happy being told to go back and find other standards, but I think that's exactly what needs to happen in this case. They need to be told to go back and find other standards. These standards just are not acceptable to Wyoming's way of life. I mean, we're a fossil fuel state. Why would we adopt standards that go against our way of life?
Okay, well then the next question is, as parents are made aware of this and obviously need to get involved. You were talking about down in Lander. Is this something that is brought around the state of Wyoming that eventually every single school district will have a chance to look at?
No, they're actually in their final process with this. All that already happened, and I'm sure most people didn't even know what was going on. No, the next State Board of Education meeting will be January. I think it's the 1st of January, 4th or 5th. They have it tentatively on their website, and I believe it'll be in Cheyenne. They don't have it listed yet, but I think it will be in Cheyenne. I think parents will be shocked. If they adopt these standards, it begins the 45-day comment period, and then they go right into writing rules and regulations, and they'll be our standards. So we're at the end of the process, Glenn, not the beginning.
Okay. See, that's why I asked that question. I didn't realize we were that far along in the process. And then, of course, we've talked about this before. When they're writing rules and regulations, this drives me crazy. What they're really doing is they've given the bureaucrats the ability to write law, in this case, write law regarding your kids. So this is something they need to get on quickly. So how do people get on this, find out, get involved, make their comments known?
Well, they can go onto the Wyoming Department of Education website if they want to and try to take a look at the standards if they really want to research them. You can also find these standards because they're national standards. These were developed nationally. NextGen, NextGenScience.org. So Next Generation Science, but instead of generation, it's just Gen, G-E-N. They can take a look at them, and then they need to call the governor. Remember, this board serves at the pleasure of the governor. It's appointed by the governor, so it's pretty important that they call the governor and also call their local legislators and let them know that they're unhappy with these standards and with the process. And then if you can, shoot an email to the state board. I'll tell you this, Glenn, it's very interesting because when you go on the Wyoming Department of Education website and you go under the state's Board of Education, they list all the board members. Their emails are nowhere. They don't list them anywhere on the website.
See,
so they make this...
Well, I was just going to say, the whole time you've been talking here, it reminds me of the conversation I had just before you with Steve Klein, as this once transparent state is getting less and less transparent.
Yeah, it's disappointing, these little things. I mean, I think it just makes it more and more difficult for people to contact the folks. And, of course, this is not an elected board. So that does make a difference. It's not an elected board. It's not subject to the election process. However, the governor is, and this board serves at the pleasure of the governor. So it is very important, more than anything, to contact the governor.
I'm up against a hard break. Good to see you again.
Good to see you, Glenn.